All right, Screenagers, welcome back. It's time, unfortunately, for our season 4 finale. But before we say all those goodbyes and stuff, we do have one more movie to talk about. One last Lord of the Rings movie to talk about. Been a ton of fun chatting The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers, which obviously means that today we're going to be talking Return of the King. To help me talk about it is one of our favorite guests. I think maybe from folks outside of Screen Age Wasteland. I think this guest has been on, has had the most hits on the show. So in a way, it is our own Return of the King. Mr. Dave Wilson is back. How's it going?
I'm glad to be with you, Raphael Stett, here at the end of all things.
Is that a Sam quote?
That's a Sam quote. Or no, that's a Frodo quote. Sorry, that's a Frodo quote.
To Sam.
Yeah, to Sam.
Amazing. Well, I assume there's going to be a whole lot of us just like throwing
a lot of Sam quotes written down. That's the only Frodo one I think I have in this one.
I'm excited to hear how you're going to work all of them in.
Now I gotta say, when you said Return of the King, I thought we were talking about Carmelo and Cayenne coming back to Syracuse.
There is that. There is the return of that king to our beloved Syracuse Orange. We won't talk too much college hoops this episode because
Syracuse is terrible now.
Syracuse is terrible right now, and you may not be listening to us the day that this episode is dropping. But we're dropping Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which means we're going to have to talk a little bit about best Thanksgiving foods. If you're listening to us after Thanksgiving and you don't want any more Thanksgiving content, feel free to skip the next 15 minutes or so. I don't know how long we're going to be talking Thanksgiving foods. I can assume that it'll get a little heated before we get into all things Return to the King. But yeah, so
Thanksgiving food makes people so mad.
It really does. Like Thanksgiving Day, right? People are usually like arguing about politics or whatever. But in the time leading up to Thanksgiving, the big arguments are about Thanksgiving food. There is like the larger argument of people who just flat out say that Thanksgiving food is bad.
Yeah, like the anti-turkey contingent.
Yeah, which I think turkey's pretty good.
I gotta say, I eat a turkey sandwich like almost every day.
Yeah, like I get it. It's like a little bit drier than chicken or whatever. But obviously at Thanksgiving, you're feeding 20 people, not 3 to 4. So you need a bigger bird, and everything that surrounds the turkey, the supporting cast, kind of like the Fellowship, right?
Yeah.
You've got Frodo in the middle. Frodo's our turkey. He's probably the least exciting part, but he is surrounded by so many great sides, so many great side dishes.
Man, that's the bit we should have done, not talking about our favorite Thanksgiving foods. We should have compared every member of the Fellowship to a Thanksgiving dish. Can we do this on the spot? Sam or Frodo's clearly the turkey, right? Just because he's the centerpiece.
I think I trust our improv abilities to be able to come up with this. Let's go this route.
All right.
This might
I think
be the
Sam
way
has to be the mashed potatoes, right? Because potatoes,
yeah.
Yeah. And he's obviously the kind of signature supporting. When you think Thanksgiving, right? You think turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, gravy. Yeah. Those are essentially your 4 main components, right?
Who's our stuffing?
I guess that has to be Aragorn, or is it Gandalf?
I was going back and forth between the two, but I feel like Aragorn.
I think it might be Aragorn. Maybe Gandalf is the gravy, because he's like kind of oversees the whole thing,
right? Yeah, you're
putting
him across everything. Yeah. But the stuffing does kind of hold everything together, or keep everything together.
It's kind of like your most solid thing, right? Like the turkey. I mean, turkey, like, obviously is the foundation, but when you got gravy poured all over everything, it can make everything soggy. But the stuffing kind of stays sturdy through all of that, right?
Yeah, through all of the trials and tribulations, Aragorn never shows that he is wavering in any way, shape, or form. He never shows you that he feels overwhelmed or not up to the task. always just a steady hand, and that's what your stuffing is. So I think that makes sense. What are we giving the other hobbits? What are we giving Merry?
Yeah, I'm not sure because they're kind of, and honestly, I kind of forgot how like great they are in this movie in particular. They kind of get the most, like obviously they're with the Ents and the Two Towers, but in this one they each get big moments. But they're clearly like kind of the I don't know, auxiliary pieces, right? They're like like they're they pop in for a second here and there. Like I almost feel like they're almost desserts, right?
You know what they could be? I kind of like desserts. I was thinking like a cream corn and maybe like some like candied yams, because those are like good. Like they're never stealing the show, but they have their moments when you take.
You're not really going to mix it in with the the gravy and the mashed potatoes and all that, right? It's going to be a little separate spot on the plate.
Yeah, it's like a much smaller portion, but whenever you take a bite, you're like, yeah, this is good stuff.
It's a change up, right? It's a change up on the plate.
Yeah, but they could also be desserts. I like that. I like them as pies.
Well, what about so we've got obviously. So who do we have left? We have Legolas, Gimli, and I guess Boromir, right?
Yeah,
I'm not missing anyone. I don't think. Maybe Boromir is. I guess he's going to be the appetizer because he disappears pretty quickly.
He's like
your cheese plate.
Yeah. He's like a charcuterie plate, or just like rolls, like buttered rolls.
Yeah, maybe he's the roll because he is. He doesn't get a lot to do, but obviously a good buttered roll is a pretty great way to start things off. And he gets kind of like I don't want to say the first great moment, because I guess Gandalf sacrifices himself before, but his sacrifice at the end of the first movie is obviously kind of one of the first signature moments of the series.
I also kind of like him as a charcuterie board.
Yeah, I think either way, he's kind of like he kicks you off, right? He's the first thing you're known for.
He's what you're having as the family is all arriving and people are, saying hello. You've still got the football on in the background. Yeah. It's still like the Lions game. We're not at the Cowboys game yet. He's very much so first game of the day. Not quite parade level, but first football game.
And so does that make Legolas and Gimli? I mean, they're kind of like the flashiest characters, right? Like Gimli is the comic relief of the whole thing, and Legolas is like does the cool shit.
So what are the flashy dishes? I feel like this one will change from like household to household.
Right.
Like,
so we've kind of gone through the I guess we haven't done cranberry sauce. I'm not a big cranberry sauce guy.
Yeah, I can't say. I think in non-white households, cranberry sauce rarely, if ever, makes an appearance. I don't think I've ever had cranberries.
I guess we got mac and cheese still out there too, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, either of them could be my mac and cheese because I love them both so much. I guess Legolas makes sense because his hair is kind of yellowy.
And does that make then Gimli is, I guess, cranberry sauce, or what are we missing?
What are the other staples? We don't have any like greens or anything.
Yeah, like a green bean casserole or whatever. I think that's another white people thing that probably
casseroles
not
are very
in the Stitt household.
No, no casseroles. But yeah, I mean, like he could be like maybe like some roasted like Brussels sprouts.
Yeah,
some like a vegetable, but it's still fun.
Yeah, I love a roasted Brussels sprout.
Yeah, delicious, amazing. You like sprinkle a little bit of sugar on top.
And I think that sums up our we've put together a full meal, and that sums up the fellowship, right? Like they complement each other so well.
But then we've got everyone else. We've got like Theoden and like Faramir. They could be like a bottle of wine.
Yeah, right. That's like the stuff you prepare in the household, and there's the stuff you bring in from the outside, right? Like you're like, oh, everyone brings a dessert or whatever, or you bring them out. So those are your Theodens, your Faramir's, your Éomers,
there are various desserts and drinks and other appetizers for the table.
That was pretty good for no prep, I think.
That was a pretty good rundown. I feel like we totally smashed that. Okay, so we have our fellowship as Thanksgiving foods, but David, what is your David, son of Thavid, I should say? What is your favorite or go-to Thanksgiving food?
I am so really my favorite thing about Thanksgiving is the leftovers, like the day after when you make the sandwich with everything all smashed up together on it, right?
Yeah.
I'm a pretty big stuffing guy. I think my take on stuffing is we should eat it more. I don't understand why we only eat it on Thanksgiving. Like anytime you make like a roasted chicken or something, like I don't know, just why not throw some stuffing in the mix?
That's fair. Maybe it's too carb heavy.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's probably of the staples like my favorite. Do you have a favorite or a least favorite?
A favorite, easily mac and cheese, but again, I think in non-white households, mac and cheese maybe holds a different position than it might in some other households. So for me, mac and cheese is always like the go-to dish. It's probably taking up like half of my plate. I'm unfortunately
my only thought with mac and cheese is that you have mac and cheese. Like that's why I kind of like stuffing because it's like a once a year it makes an appearance. Whereas mac and cheese, I feel like you can have all the time. Yeah.
That's totally fair. Mashed potatoes, I unfortunately am like not the biggest mashed potato guy. I understand that like I am the weirdo in that situation and that I should love mashed potatoes, and I probably haven't had the right kinds of mashed potatoes that like aren't like whipped enough or like have enough like butter in them. Like it's always great with gravy, but to me that's not like the first thing that I'm going for on my plate.
I feel that.
But I wouldn't say it's like my least favorite. Yeah, I guess I would say it's my least favorite of the staples.
Does your family Thanksgiving table have like some weird thing like that no one else has? Like do you have a Stitt family signature that pops up on the table every year?
I don't know if it's like Stitt family stuff, but because like my mom's side of the family is Dominican, we will have like some Dominican dishes too. Like nice. There's still like always like a bowl of rice. There's just like a pot of rice that's being made, even though like we have like so many other like carb heavy sides that we like probably don't need it. I don't think that that's like particular to my family. I think that's just
it's like my wife's family is Italian and they eat like baked ziti on Thanksgiving.
It's just like it doesn't like need to be here, but like it always is there.
Yeah.
Is there something that's always at your guys' Thanksgiving?
We always do it at my aunt's house and her brother. So like it's like the other side, like we're not technically related, but you know, it's her other side of the family. He always makes wonton soup. Amazing. Not Asian, but just a great tradition we have. He's a good cook and like soup is like, you know, when everything else is taken up by making the other stuff, you can like make that in a crock pot or whatever, basically. Yeah. So he generally experiments with some soup, and wonton soup has frequently been a staple on the Wilson family, well, the Citron family Thanksgiving table.
That's amazing. So there's just like, you got like turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, and then on the side a bowl of wontons.
Yeah, I feel like the soup is usually the like first thing you eat, right? It's more of an appetizer situation, but
okay.
Yes,
you're having that's your Boromir.
Yeah, exactly. That's our Boromir.
That's amazing. I love that. I don't think you gave us your least favorite dish.
I'm not a cranberry sauce guy. I mentioned that earlier. I feel like we don't do a lot of cranberry sauce in our, but you know, it has to be there because like in case someone wants it. But that's one that never makes it on my plate.
That's fair. I will
do I think for dinner tonight, I'm going to get Publix does a like Thanksgiving sandwich every year. And that has like cranberry. It's not the gooey cranberry sauce that like put cranberries on the sandwich. I'll eat that when it's
nice. Okay. For any of our listeners who are not from Florida or where else is Publix? Is it
it's like
just
in the
Florida?
South, Georgia,
in the South? Okay.
Alabama probably, but yeah, it's a Florida based company.
It's a supermarket chain, right?
Yeah. It's our grocery store. It's, I don't even know. What do you guys have? Stop and Shop in New York, right?
We have Stop and Shop in New York, yeah. And then there's like Food Lion in like the Carolinas.
Yeah, we had one of those in Maryland growing up. It's not very good. That's like D-tier supermarket.
Oh, wow. There's Safeway out west.
We had Safeway also, actually.
There's, I guess in the Midwest, it would be Kruger's.
Kroger,
or Kroger's. That's the big one out there. But Publix is like famous for.
We had Tops
their
up in upstate
sandwiches.
New York and Syracuse.
Tops and Wegmans. Yeah. Kind of Wegmans is sort of taking over like the greater Northeast area right now,
Yeah.
which is
they're everywhere now.
big news. Yeah.
And Publix is a little similar to Wegmans, where you
Mhm.
have like a sandwich counter and you get a little bit of hot food and stuff like that.
Nice. And they have a banging Thanksgiving sandwich.
It's pretty good. People love the chicken tender sandwich is kind of like that's everyone's favorite.
That's
at
the
Publix.
staple.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's awesome. I was going to, before we finally move on to Return of the King proper, with what you were saying about cranberry sauce, I think I would want to go to like a classic, like Midwestern Thanksgiving and have like a bunch of casseroles, some cranberry sauce, like the world's driest turkey, just to like
understand,
experience like, different cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's the other weird thing we throw on our we're Jewish, so we like there will be a kugel usually on the table too.
A what? I don't
know. A kugel.
What's that?
It's like a Jewish casserole, usually like noodle and egg and
interesting
stuff. You'll see it at like usually it's more of like a breakfast thing, but it'll usually wind up on the table because it fits that casserole vibe kind of.
You just like bake it for like 40 minutes or whatever and then pop it out. That's casseroles are popping for a reason. As is Return of the King.
Great segue.
The final installment in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, probably the greatest trilogy in movie history, I would say.
Most consistent, definitely.
Definitely the most consistent. Yeah, like across the board, like A-tier stuff.
Yeah.
The drop off. There really is no drop off.
Like 3 5-star movies, basically.
Yeah. So, I guess to get us started for this particular flick, did you see this in theater? Like, what was your first time seeing this? Had you seen the other two, and were you like highly anticipating this one?
Yeah,
did you read the books before?
I think I had maybe read the first one. I know I read the first one when I was like, so I'd seen I think I saw the first two on like DVD. I did not see the first two in theaters. We were like 10 years old basically when the first one came out.
Yeah, we were in like 4th grade when the first one came out.
And maybe I had read the first book in between seeing the second movie and the third one. Although I didn't finish them all at the time. I actually finally read all 3 of them during COVID. That was a great COVID read, I think. But I definitely saw this in theaters. Definitely was very pumped about it. You stole one of my recommendations on the episode last week because I played a lot of the Lord of the Rings video games. The Two Towers one. There was a Return of the King one too.
I think we used to play the Two Towers video game like together in college.
Yeah, we might have had it on like a GameCube and somewhere in college. Yeah. So I was very pumped. Definitely like lived up to the expectations at the time, right? And I definitely remember that the like 7 endings being a thing. Like coming out of that movie and being like, that was really good, but like, why were there 7 endings?
Yeah. I feel like that's everyone's big takeaway from this movie is like,
well, it's become like a thing, and it's nice to know that like there are, or like sometimes you see like these memes on the internet, and that's like a meme kind of, and you're like, oh, that's just like internet groupthink. But no, that was a thing people really thought coming out of it in an era before social media. So nice reminder that we can have organic thoughts and collective experiences.
Yeah, that was a cool thing, pre-internet. But okay, I don't know if I really want to start here, but it was interesting rewatching this for this, and for me, like the multiple endings was like my favorite part of the movie.
I kind of liked it too. I was gonna make fun of it more, but I actually like. I was going. I in my notes here. I was gonna save this for later. I was trying to rank the endings.
Yeah.
And as I was doing it, I was like, oh, there's not really a bad one in here. You could make a case that they could like kind of condense a couple of them. Like I know people make fun of like the bedroom scene, right? Yeah. But the end of that scene where Frodo looks at Sam is like, that would have been a perfect ending there. But then after that, it's like the kneeling, you kneel for no one, which is probably like, if you're like, okay, how should this movie actually end? That's probably the ending you do, right?
Yeah.
The big pan out, you see all of Middle Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But like the actual ending where Frodo leaves and then Sam goes back to like live his life is that's a really good ending too, that, you know, Frodo couldn't deal with what happened, and Sam in his own ways can't deal with what happened, but you know, has to go on and keep living life and make the most of it, basically.
Yeah, I do. It is tough because like you're like, yeah, you could end it in all these different places, but I was like pretty teary-eyed rewatching
The scene in the bar, like when they're back at the Green Dragon and like and they just like are sitting there and like everyone else is like just having a good time, but they went through, like, you talked a lot, I think on the last, I don't remember if it was on your Fellowship episode or Two Towers, about how much World War II, both the World Wars, kind of influenced these movies. And that's like, you feel like that's like the PTSD, right? Is that like they're sitting there in the bar, they've been through literal hell.
Everyone else is celebrating because like evil was defeated.
Yeah. And they're just like, they have to just keep living their lives after like a life-changing experience, obviously.
No, that is super interesting. The PTSD element of like that scene. But you're watching like Sam walk into his home with his little family.
Yeah.
And I thought before it faded to black, I thought there was going to be the end title card on that screen before it fades. But still, I was like, this is such a magical way to end a magical movie at the end of a magical trilogy. I want to hear your rankings of the endings.
I didn't actually get through it all, but okay. So I'm going to do it kind of on the spot. Number one is definitely the Aragorn coronation ending with, my friends, you bow to no one.
Yeah.
I think like the actual ending, like Sam going back to the Shire with his family. So the question is, where do you break up the endings, right? Like, is that a different ending than Frodo leaving?
I would make those two different endings.
Yeah, okay. So then a 2, I've got Sam returning to the Shire. 3, maybe I kind of like, you couldn't have done it, but if you had ended with like the quote I opened with, like, I'm glad to be here with you at the end of all things, and then it had like, you do like a little narration to like close out the last whatever, like that would have been a pretty good ending. I mean, you would have missed. So the problem is you do those earlier endings, you miss out. Like if you end on the bedroom scene, that's before the you bow to no one. So I'll put that one 3. Maybe I'll do the Frodo leaving 4, bedroom 5.
Do we consider
like I don't what was that?
Do we consider the Eagles?
The Eagles, that's another one I had written down as a potential ending. I have them sitting in the Green Dragon and Sam getting married. Like, is that an ending?
Yeah.
Frodo finishing the book. If there's one thing you probably cut out, like it's probably that one. Like,
yeah,
whatever. Although then he leaves the ending for Sam, right? Is the he like leaves him a note in the. I guess that's supposed to be because he says like it's at the last pages are for you or whatever, and that's like how it ends basically. So, yeah.
Does Frodo go to die with the elves in their weird?
Yeah, he goes to the Undying Lands, right? I think.
Yeah.
It's never. I'm sure. If I tried to read the Silmarillion a couple of years ago, and that is very dense. I'm sure it's explained somewhere in there in the appendices, like what the deal with the Undying Lands is. But yes, he goes.
It's mentioned briefly in the beginning of the Rings of Power TV show.
Yeah, I only watched the first season of that. I still haven't watched any of the second one.
I watched the first 2 episodes of the first season, and I unfortunately was not a fan.
Yeah, it was like fine. I think people who were like really into the appendices and stuff are kind of into it, but
yeah,
they're definitely not trying to like cast a Game of Thrones type wide audience with it at this point. It doesn't seem like.
It seemed very much so trying to target like super hardcore
Tolkien
loader
heads.
fans. Yeah, Tolkien heads. But yeah, so with all the endings, to me, this is my least favorite out of the three movies, which is still to say that like this is a movie that I find extremely impressive and enjoyable to rewatch. But I find a lot of the sort of like, I guess we can say middle parts, like the middle like hour and a half of the movie, to me is like not as exciting as all of the super emotional stuff that wraps up at the end, or like any of the excitement of either of the first two movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you feel the same way or if you get down with like the Battle of Minas Tirith and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I texted you the other day. I was watching Two Towers, and I was like, the last hour of this is like the best thing anyone's ever made. And I kind of feel the same way about like the last hour of Return of the King also.
Yeah.
Basically from like after the, I guess when they kill the Witch King, that's like during the Plains of Pelennor battle, right? So like basically like from that charge there that leads to that showdown until the end is pretty money. Yeah. You got the charge. I mean, they've got the Great Horse Charge in that battle too. So like Minas Tirith is kind of like whatever to me. I agree with you. Like I love the design of that city and everything. What Denethor, like I'm not a big Denethor guy. Like guys went mad way too easily in Middle Earth. But yeah, I think, so I watched the extended edition on a couple of days ago, which is 4.5 hours long, although the credits are really long. So really it's like 4 hours long. But so I just kind of like let it rock in the background all day and, really like focused in here and there while I was like kind of doing other stuff. And it's like kind of perfect for that, which is true, honestly, of I think a lot of Two Towers also. But then, yeah, like you lock in on the big scenes, and especially like the last hour of both of those movies are like, that's like cinema, pure cinema.
Yeah. Pure cinema happens.
And I feel you about like the first hour and a half or whatever. There's a lot of like kind of forgettable stuff. I like the prologue. I like the Gollum. Killing his brother or whatever, or his friend. What do you make? This is one of the notes I wrote down. Is like every one of these movies starts with a prologue, right? Because you've got obviously the like whole war table setting and Fellowship, which is awesome. The second one is technically, I guess it's Frodo's dream, right? But it basically is a prologue of like how Gandalf came back to life. I don't know. What do you? It's kind of interesting that each one of them starts off like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like this one is like the tightest thematically, with like obviously like Frodo goes through a lot of the same stuff as Gollum does.
Yeah, I was gonna say not to like talk too much about the Two Towers, but I feel like that prologue is like whatever. Like it doesn't really.
It's just like a cool fight.
Yeah, it's like, hey, here's Gandalf dying again. Remember that from the first one? But this one, it like totally makes sense. One, like it's cool to see Andy Serkis not in like not fully digitized as Gollum.
Yeah.
Like we get to see his actual face, which is cool. Like he deserves that as an actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you're saying, like thematically, it makes the most sense with like what the ring starts to turn Frodo into, and then sort of how Gollum ends up wanting to, or like revealing himself to like, wanted to like double cross Sam and Frodo again. Like you've murdered before, you can do it again.
Yeah.
And we like literally saw the murder. So it fully makes sense to us as audience members. So I think out of the three, this was my favorite. It's also cool that we see there's a callback to the first prologue with the hand grabbing the ring in the water.
Oh yeah, you're right. That is in the
it's in the prologue of the first one.
Yeah.
And it's like a 2-second shot, but like not even that. But it's just sweet to be like, oh yeah, like Peter Jackson had this entire
they made all the movies at the same time, right? So that's like the benefit of that is like they went in with a true that's what differentiates this trilogy from like literally every other trilogy. Like I love Star Wars. It might be a better trilogy because like our Star Wars and Empire, like two of the, I don't know, 20 best movies of all time, like maybe, but like George Lucas made Star Wars without any idea that Darth Vader was going to be Luke's father, right? Like, or that he and Luke and Leia were going to, so like, you feel that like the little bit of like jankiness, and it's part of like the charm of it is like they're improvising a lot as those movies go, right? Like the Jabba's palace raid in the third one happens because they had to have an out in case Harrison Ford wouldn't come back. Whereas this one is just like so cleanly plotted, tightly, like thematically, tonally in sync across, if you do all the extended editions, like 12 hours of movie essentially.
Yeah. And absolutely insane that because they shot it over 2 years. They shot everything over a 2-year period. And then Peter Jackson and his team were just down in New Zealand editing it. And I'm sure while you're editing Fellowship to like make sure that one reaches its first release date. But at the same time, you're also thinking about how you're going to be editing together Return of the King at the end.
They were shot simultaneously across 438 days. And then did some like reshoots, obviously here and there, as like they needed to, but yeah, absolutely bonkers. It's also really cool, like to rewatch them and just like feel how much more epic it gets from movie to movie. Like this movie kind of feels totally different than Fellowship in terms of like how big it is, just like even like how much we're using like CG technology and stuff. Like Minas Tirith is like mostly CG animation and effects, as obviously
opposed
you got
to
the ghosts, right? That's all has to be CG.
How do we feel about the ghosts?
They really like the gimmick of like, and maybe you didn't watch the extended version, so I think maybe one of these scenes in the extended version of like Aragorn like getting ready to walk in, and it looks like they're going to be like 3 on a million, and then all of a sudden ghosts pop up behind them. They really like that gimmick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels a little it's a little like Deus Ex Machina, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it feels, and I like the first Pirates of the Caribbean, but it feels very Pirates of the Caribbean to me.
Yeah. Did that also come out in 03?
Like right around the same time, right?
Just like a huge like 2-year span for ghost pirate stories.
Yeah, well, and they end up on the boat too, right? They're essentially pirates.
They're kind of pirates, yeah.
Yeah.
That part, that like that's the middle part of the movie that like kind of not loses me, but that when I have it on in the background and I'm doing other things around the house, that's when I'm more like locked into whatever it is that I'm doing around the house, or like that's when I will clean in another room that's not necessarily the room that's playing the movie. Okay, so I feel like we're just like all over the place right now.
Yeah.
With the ghosts, with Aragorn summoning the ghosts, it feels in many ways like this is his movie, probably because it's titled Return of the King, and he is said king who is returning. How do you feel about his character arc in this movie in particular, and then sort of like how you feel about all of the characters and sort of like their moments and arcs that they have throughout this movie?
Yeah, so it obviously is positioned as kind of Aragorn's movie. It's called Return of the King. He's the poster, right? It's like his face. I really came out of this rewatch being like, oh, this is the Hobbit's movie. Obviously Sam and Frodo, but Pippin and Merry get a lot to do in this movie too, which a lot of that was changed from the books, which is interesting. I think the Pippin, all his stuff going on in Minas Tirith, like a lot of that is rewritten from the books. Aragorn was just always like the coolest, right? Like he is, it's like the Han Solo trope, right? Like the reluctant, like, Han Solo wasn't royalty, but like the like rogue who's like reluctantly becomes part of this heroic endeavor. And yeah, like I kind of like don't care about all the lineage stuff, right? And like the fact that he can talk to the ghosts and stuff, but his leadership and his faith in Frodo ends up being like, he becomes like a natural leader, right? It's his birthright to be the king, but it's also because he leads those last couple, he keeps everyone calm. I think this is cut out of the theatrical version, but there's the scene with the mouth of Sauron where like the guy comes out from the gate and he's got like the weird fucked up mouth, and he's like, he throws Frodo. They have Frodo's like chainmail, and so like they're like, we got him, like he's dead, and Aragorn just cuts the guy's head off, and it's like, we can't believe it or whatever. We can't believe he's dead. Like, and then obviously the last fight starts from there. So I think he's positioned as the star. I don't know, was he the biggest like actor kind of the main group at the time? I don't really remember. Obviously, like Sean Astin was probably pretty successful. Yeah, I don't know, but he obviously.
I think Elijah Wood and Sean Astin were like pretty big.
Well, I assume like Christopher Lee, right? Like a couple of the older guys.
Yeah, and probably Ian McKellen. I think Elijah Wood definitely gets top billing.
Yeah. But I don't know if he was like a known commodity at that point. Maybe he was.
Elijah Wood. He was. Yeah. He did like a bunch of stuff in the 90s. He was in like.
Okay.
Was he in that movie with Macaulay Culkin where one of the kids dies or something? And then he was in The Faculty, that Robert Rodriguez teen slasher movie.
Oh yeah,
from the 90s. He was in stuff. People like, he was like an up and coming sort of star. But
and obviously Sean Astin he'd been Rudy already, right? So
he was Rudy. He was in the Goonies. Yeah. But I think he's like maybe like fifth build.
Yeah.
In this movie, which is super weird.
Well, yeah, because you got Frodo, Aragorn, Gandalf, right? Like those guys
they're probably top three. Yeah. Liv Tyler surprisingly has really high billing in this, despite not being in it.
Not being in it very much, no.
Yeah, I think she was just like must have been like a huge name at the time.
Yes,
coming off Armageddon and stuff.
Armageddon and being Steven Tyler's daughter, right?
Yeah, you're gonna give her high billing.
Yeah.
Sean Bean gets an and credit in this, which is pretty awesome, even though he's not in it.
I can't remember. Is there like a flash? There is a flashback, I think.
There might be of him
dying. When Pippin is talking to Denethor and like telling him about like the sacrifice.
Yeah.
I think there might be a quick flashback to that. Again, I don't know if that maybe is only in the extended version, but yeah, so like I think the Aragorn, his arc becomes about like, I mean, it's obviously I think the biggest criticism you can make of Lord of the Rings is that it just makes everything black and white, right? Like good against evil. And Aragorn becomes like the embodiment of what you want a leader to be, like selfless and like faithful, or not faithful. What's the word I'm looking for? Like he has belief in the unlikelihood. It's such an unlikely quest they're on. And he has faith in Frodo and Sam, kind of blind faith that they're going to deliver what they needed to deliver for them.
Yeah. I think that's what makes him such
he believes, he becomes friends with, like, obviously the great message of the movies and the books is like, if we all come together, we can accomplish so much, essentially. And that is, he is the guy, like the pivot point for all of that, who.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're a dwarf or an elf
or a hobbit. The littlest person among us can be the biggest hero, right? And he believes in that.
He believes in it more than anyone else.
Unless you're an orc, then.
Yeah. Then get effed, loser. Or if you're a bad wizard, like Saruman. But yeah, his like reluctant leadership is, and like that like unwavering faith in the good, in just like, I will, for lack of a better word, we'll say humanity.
Yeah.
Is like you're saying, like it can be kind of cheesy, but also again, coming out of the two world wars was like definitely kind of something that like people needed to have.
Yeah.
Cause there's like so much art and stuff that comes out after the post the Second World War that is like very much so like questioning whether or not like humanity has any good within itself, or if we are like always destined to do these awful things, and like, questioning our nature and like our advancements, and if we're just using those for the worst possible things that we could imagine, but like we needed and still do need someone like Aragorn who is just like so fully invested, and like sometimes it seems like he's saying stuff but doesn't fully actually believe it, where he's like, I still have faith in Frodo, and there are moments where you're like, he doesn't totally buy what he's saying, but he knows that he has to say it for the sake of like everyone around him to be able to step up to the plate and like do what it is that they need to do. And then obviously you contrast that with all of the other examples of leadership of men that we get. And, you know, what's the dude's name? What's Boromir's dad's name? I keep forgetting.
Denethor.
Yeah, Denethor is like the worst example of leadership.
Yes.
Theoden is also like kind of a terrible example of like what leadership can be, and like oftentimes is. You don't get it as much with like the like Elrond character, but to some extent, like Aragorn really is like even with like Gandalf is in many ways a leader of the group, but oftentimes like fails to lead in ways that he should lead.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that all of that is to like position Aragorn sort of like to counter what it is that those other characters are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like I mentioned the Mouth of Sauron scene. That is, I think when you talk about like he says things he doesn't even necessarily believe. Like that's what that scene feels like, where he's like, I don't believe it. And then I think he looks at Gandalf and like kind of like, I can't believe it. And or we can't believe it or something like that. So I think, that in this movie, because of Denethor, and actually because Theoden gets after being shitty, not all for his own fault, obviously, in the second one, gets his redemption here. It ends up being a good movie that like about the different like contrast in leadership, where you get those three kings essentially, and all of them.
Yeah.
You know, Denethor's kind of a caricature, right? He's just like so bad at being a leader.
Yeah.
That like
agree or disagree that Gondor is extremely France coded.
I've never been to France, but I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah, like it's the right on the border, right? And maybe a little too acquiescent to Mordor, a little too willing to just let them arise or amass power. But I get what you're saying. But then even Sam ends up being a good leader, right? Like when Frodo wants to quit, and that I can't carry it, but I can carry you. And Mary gets the great scene with Eowyn, right, where he kind of like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but like right before that battle, he gives her a speech. So you get everyone in their small way. Obviously, like they're all the heroes for a reason, but the heroes in this movie are infallible in ways that a lot of other movies probably would not, and a lot of, it's faithful to the text, but a lot of more modern movies would not be so, would not paint their characters so black and white. But obviously that's like kind of the intent of this trilogy. And
we can't.
Again, it becomes more about it becomes more about the fact that everyone, no matter your background, no matter your species, no matter how tall you are, you can be a hero and a great leader if they're traits that doesn't matter where you're from or who you are. Like there are certain things that can make you a great leader.
It's a movie for the short kings.
It is. That's really why I love it. They're so small, and yet they have such big responsibilities.
Yeah. They're just simple Shire folk, and they end up saving the world. You mentioned a lot of the other characters who get sort of like their moments to lead or to shine. Was there another one that like stood out to you, or you felt was like the most impactful for you personally?
Like I said, my biggest takeaway watching it this time was that it's like the Hobbits movie, and you think that when I say the Hobbits movie, Frodo and Sam, but I think Pippin and Merry, who again, they're kind of comic relief through a lot of the first two, and even in the second one where they're part of a big battle, they're like just chucking rocks at orcs. And like spending way too long trying to convince the Ents to make a decision. not their fault. The Ents were taking too long to make a
Yeah.
decision. But in this one, Pippin rescues Faramir, right? When they're gonna he's the one who lights the towers, right? Like when Denethor refuses to. He wants to fight really badly.
Yeah.
And then obviously Mary gets to help kill the Witch King and is out there with Eowyn on that battlefield. So I think those two getting to elevate above being just the other the other members of the Fellowship, which again a lot of that, if I'm remembering correctly, is changed from the book. Not that they're in different places necessarily, but they're just given a little bit more to do. I think that's very intentional to not just flesh out every character more, but kind of further that theme of it'd be very easy to just be all right, Aragorn saves the day because he's cool and has a cool sword, but it's not just about him. He doesn't even get a big fight, right?
No, he doesn't he gets the for Frodo speech, but even with that, Merry and Pippin are the
first two that run after him.
Run out. Yeah. And so with the Merry and Pippin thing and this being the Hobbits movie, as much as, I think for people who are our age, we grow up watching this movie and we're Legolas and Gimli, they're the coolest characters. They get the most.
They do kill counts. Yeah,
they do kill counts and stuff. But then rewatching this, you're oh, they really have no development whatsoever besides just hey, we're friends.
Yeah, which is a great, that's a great line, right? That's one of the many lines I wrote down.
Yeah,
could you imagine dying side by side with a dwarf or whatever?
Yeah,
no, but I could with a friend.
How about side by side with a friend? Yeah.
So that
adorable.
ends up. Yeah, but I agree with you. They don't have a lot to do. They get cool fight scenes, but that ends up being important. Just those two are with each other all the time on the battlefield and end up being symbolic, obviously, for, there's not a lot of dwarfs in these movies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of elves, right? But
not good dwarf representation here.
Yeah. Which why I kind of like the,
canceled.
I kind of like the Rings of Power because you get some more dwarf action in that.
Yeah.
And obviously the Hobbit you do too, but the Hobbit movies are kind of a mess.
Yeah.
The first one's fine.
Speaking of this movie being canceled for its lack of dwarf representation, I forgot that the Weinsteins produced this.
Yeah, that's any movie you watch in the 90s and 2000s. Any good movie, it's
there's a good chance.
Weinstein production. It's
yeah. Return of the King is
Pulp Fiction has that, right? It's a Miramax. All the Tarantino movies.
Yeah. So dumb.
Hey man, he had good taste.
Yeah. Okay. I feel while we're talking about all these, great character moments and stuff, it definitely true within the first movie, maybe not as true in the second movie, but really hammered home in this movie is just how much we can do and resolve through the power of friendship. The Legolas Gimli stuff, Frodo and Sam,
yeah.
Obviously. Do we want to get into are there undertones of some sort of not even homoerotic, but just homo-romantic relationship between the two of them? I don't know.
I mean, neither of us are gay, so I don't know if it's our place, but I don't know, dudes can be friends.
Yeah, dudes can love each other. Dude friends can just can have really deep love and affection for one another, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a romantic thing. So I don't know. I never really bought that, but
yeah, I mean, if people want to interpret it that way, the scene at the very end when they're sitting on the rock, Frodo and Sam, and really hugging each other and have their faces close together. Okay, if you're gay, I can kind of get it. This is a movie made in 2003. I'm not saying that gay people didn't exist in 2003, but it was a different time in terms of gay representation on film, certainly. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's intended to be homoerotic, but I mean, if you want to interpret it that way, I got no problem with it. But I just think dudes can be friends.
Dudes can love their friends.
If Raf had to carry a ring into Mordor, I'd be right there with him.
Hell yeah. Same for you. I feel like
It'd be easier for you to carry me though than it would be for me to carry you.
I think I would give you a piggyback ride though. Doesn't Sam sort of like, does he fling him over his shoulder? He
throws him over his shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would just go straight piggyback ride.
That's a good idea.
Personally, but that's to each their own, Sam. I don't know. He might, because they're lower to the ground. He might have gravity.
Sam's a pretty sturdy guy. Played linebacker at Notre Dame.
I mean, he was like fifth string. He had to beg his way onto the team. I was going to say, I feel like the scene, one of the ending scenes where everyone is like coming into Frodo's room and they're all like smiling and laughing and jumping on the bed. I feel like we have done that. We did that in college, like going into like our buddy's room after a night out, and we're all just like, and it was also in slow motion.
We all made it.
Yeah, we did it, giving high fives and stuff. And then Sam, our buddy Sam, walks in last and smiles at Frodo.
Smiles,
yeah, good times. The one other weird thing about this movie, so Two Towers for me is the most World War I, World War II sort of inspired. Mm-hmm. But another thing that pops up all throughout the series, but particularly in this one, and this was my dad's big takeaway when we walked out of the theater, was that movie was super biblical.
Yeah. I mean, this one definitely gets it the most, right? Other than, Gandalf coming back to life in the second one.
Yeah. It's
definitely
Jesus.
Yeah. But I mean, Aragorn is styled. He looks like what, like Renaissance era paintings of Jesus look like.
Yeah.
Right?
He looks like white Jesus.
Yeah. I don't know the Bible that well, but yeah, I mean, I think those are the two overriding like influences on this whole thing, right? Are three. I think the three things are the Bible, and as you mentioned, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were buddies, and obviously, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is like that doesn't even hide its biblical allegory, right?
Yeah.
Then obviously you got the World War II, like that. I still think that's kind of the strongest influence there. And then you obviously have his, the Tolkien being a like language guy above all else, right? Like he studied different languages, and that clearly influenced his creativity. Certainly, like he invented Elvish before he wrote all these books, right? But also like his interest in different cultures, I think shines throughout these, where again, like, do like the dwarfs get short shrift? Like, do you really know what the dwarfs are like? Maybe you do a little bit because you get to see the mines of Moria. But like, not just like the elves and the humans and the hobbits all feel different, but all the countries I don't know if they're countries, cities they go to have a different feel as well. So I think that.
Yeah. I feel like you feel that more so in the first one, where they're really like
they're like traveling through the country. Like what's the town? Like, I can't remember what's the first town they go to where they go to the Black Dog. Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
the Black Dog pub. So like it is like, it's funny because now in our world where like fantasy tropes and like video games are everything just steals from Lord of the Rings, or
like even the maps feel the same.
Yeah, like. But that's what, a really good fantasy video game excels when the places you go to feel different. And not just like, this place is cold, this place is hot.
Also like the people or creatures or species or whatever we call them that inhabit them. Like even like the river folk that Smeagol and Deagle are.
Yeah.
Although they're similar to hobbits, we still get
different.
That there's a difference. The people of like the Kingdom of Rohan feel very different than the people of Gondor. Like even though they are both men. But yeah, it all feels very like real and lived in.
I kind of pivoted away from the Bible topic, but I mean obviously, like, I think the Aragorn being Jesus is like pretty like on the nose a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. What are there other biblical things you've got from these
No,
movies?
because so we were 12 when this came out, and when
Yeah.
my dad said that to me, I was like, Battle of Minas Tirith was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to talk about the Bible right
Yeah.
now. Let's watch a kick-ass movie, Dad.
Yeah.
But I guess just like stories of like redemption and all that stuff. I don't know. I'm also not a big Bible guy, so
Yeah.
that's kind of the extent to which I can BS whatever is going on there. More of a World War II history buff than Bible buff, but
yeah.
I think we covered most of that. I actually don't know if I have much else. Do you have any other?
I'm looking through my notes right now. Denethor, just come on, man. You got to be better. That's my main take. And again, there were so many ways to go mad in Middle Earth. Like, obviously the ring.
Yeah.
Then you got the Palantir. You touch that, you can like go crazy.
Yeah.
Apparently, just like your son dies, you just get to go mad. Like, it's sad. Yes, I get that Boromir died. It's sad, but like,
well, what do you think that Boromir was doing?
Yeah, like you're the king. Nut up.
Yeah, you're.
This is why a man shouldn't be president. Too emotional.
Too emotional. Yeah. Very curious as to like why he wasn't keeping tabs on Boromir, and then like yeah, dude, he was out doing adventures.
Yeah, like
there's a chance that he might die doing that. You thought he was just going to hang out within the walls of Minas Tirith all of his life?
I don't know. I mean, poor Faramir, like he didn't even care. Like,
yeah, does Faramir die?
He doesn't die.
But
he just almost dies, and then Denethor tries to light him on fire because he won't believe that he's actually alive. Yeah, and then he himself catches on fire and jumps off the tower, which is cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool scene.
That is a cool scene.
What else? The Éowyn killing the Witch King. The no man can kill him. So
yeah, I am no man.
Him. And that is better in the book. They definitely changed this in the movie because you couldn't have hidden that she was a woman in the movie, like unless you gave her like a really big helmet and like made sure she didn't talk. But in the book, you don't know that it's Éowyn until like pretty late in the game that she's the one who's like so it ends up being like a twist on top of a twist there. But
that's all.
Basically from there, like I just have quotes written down because that is where like that's basically the last hour of the movie, right? Starts essentially there, and then
what are the other quotes you have?
Well, I have the Aragorn speech: "The day may come when the courage of men fails, but that day is not today." And then it goes right, and then it goes right into the Gimli Legolas. That's part of like that same scene.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to Frodo. Like it's honestly just a series of unbelievable speeches in a row because then it cuts to Sam and Frodo, and it's like, "Do you remember the Shire, Mr. Frodo?" Which that speech then ends with, "I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you."
I'm literally getting goosebumps listening to you just recite these lines. Yeah.
And then it's the charge, and Pippin and Merry being the first ones behind Aragorn. And then I don't remember if it's Pippin or Merry who says like the Eagles are coming, and this was 2003. Donovan McNabb was like was that about Donovan McNabb? The Eagles are really cooking in 2003.
There's a more than zero chance that honestly there might be a less than zero chance that it's about Donovan McNabb and the Philadelphia Eagles.
What do you think about the Eagles? I feel like they underutilized in this war. These guys seem real strong.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really love the whole like, well, why didn't they just ride?
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah. Which is just like, I don't know. I feel like people who do that meme just like lack imagination.
Yeah.
And it's like, you hate stories. Like the story is about so much more than just like delivering the ring to Mordor. Like we go on this amazing emotional journey with all of these characters, and you're just like, why don't they just cut the Eagles? In the last episode when we were talking about the two towers, I think it was Ramona who brought this up when we were talking about World War II stuff. And she mentioned that the Eagles may or may not have been some sort of metaphor for the U.S.
I definitely saw that this time. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah.
I hadn't thought about it before, but, you know, now it gives me like so much American pride to see the Eagles of like, we didn't have to be there because we were off doing our own thing. Like, you know, inventing basketball or whatever. Like we didn't have to, we didn't have to fight against the Nazis. We were doing cool stuff like writing The Great Gatsby, you know, just great American things. But then at the end of the day, when they need us to come in, we swoop in, pick them up, and save the day. Although they did all the hard work on their own, I guess. So it doesn't like fully work out, but
yeah, it's nice. They do their little, like, again, you couldn't use them all the time because they're too strong, but yeah, they get their nice little I just don't get what their deal is. I'm very curious, where are they hanging out?
I think they were busy. I think they were just busy doing Eagle stuff.
Yeah, I guess so. I feel the same way about orcs. Like, what are orcs' motivation? Like, why are they so into Sauron?
Just
what did they get out of this? Yeah,
just pure evil. Yeah. Some men just like to watch the world burn.
I guess so.
Different movie.
Should we talk? The one thing we didn't talk about that we probably should talk about is like the scene where the ring goes into the fire.
Yeah.
Which is again changed from the book. In the book, Gollum just kind of falls in himself. Frodo doesn't have anything to do with it. I've read, this is from Wikipedia, so who knows if it's accurate, but that originally they were going to have Frodo actually push him in, but they ended up doing it. They didn't want him to be like a killer, like that he just killed Gollum. But
seems like a character who's like
could have killed him.
Yeah.
But that scene's great, obviously, too. The ring is mine and all that kind of stuff. But
well, what do you think of Gollum in this whole movie? I feel like we kind of spoke about it on the front end.
Yeah.
But
I feel like the second one, like it's the first time you see him. It's like kind of such an unbelievable achievement. He's so evil in this movie, Gollum. Yeah. Like the first one, he's like a real like frenemy, kind of like that classic trope of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? But in this one, he's just devious. And I kind of like one of my favorite things in the second one is when they do like Gollum talking to Smeagol. I don't know and they like cut, like it's like two different people talking to each other. And in this one, maybe they do it the first time he does that, but eventually they're just like one person. I kind of like the way that develops as the movie.
Yeah. There's at one point he's like talking into his reflection in the water
or something. Yeah. So
and that's when Sam hears him plotting to kill them. It is an interesting depiction of just like addiction.
Yeah.
And like, just, I mean, I don't know like how much people were talking about or thinking about addiction in the early 50s or like late 40s when Tolkien was originally writing these books. But the Smeagol Gollum character, in both the second and especially this movie is very much so just like all of like just like what it like drives him to do, where he's like manipulating Sam and Frodo to, you know, eventually just get to the thing that he is addicted to. And like,
he's not even going to do anything with it.
He's just going to have it. He just like, won't, like, you know, it's just like, okay, like you're manipulating us to, you know, to do all this stuff. And like, then you just like have the bottle of Jack Daniels and like, that's it.
Yeah.
But like, that's like, you know, it's sad, but that's kind of like how it does play out. So just another like interesting thing that's sort of like woven into, everything else that's going on.
I don't like that he called Sam fat. That wasn't nice.
Yeah. Stupid fat hobbit. So mean. And then frames him with the bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not good at all.
But the other big takeaway is like the effects in this, while still like kind of dated, like again, the ghosts feel very Pirates of the Caribbean. Like the spider's really good. Like the effects in this are still like way better than anything. Like I watched Deadpool and Wolverine the other night finally, and like this just looks so much better. And obviously they spent ton of money on this, like it would be, I think if it came out now, it would still be like the most expensive movie essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it's the way they mix practical and effects, obviously, but also like you guys talked a lot about Gollum, the way he looks in the last movie, but you mentioned Minas Tirith, and this one is a lot of digital effects. Again, Shelob looks good. So again, the effects in these movies just that it's amazing that it has not aged at all in that regard. Movies that are 20 years old now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of goes to show just like how good effects can be when they're used with intention and purpose. Yeah. And like you see it from like through all of the movies, where in the first one, you don't really need a lot of digital effects to do what it is that you need to do, or to like tell the story that you need to tell. In the second one, you maybe need them a little bit more to have the Gollum character come to life. And
the Balrog, I guess, is like the one big
and the troll the troll in the first one. But
like the orcs are mostly, that's a lot of practical effects on those guys, right? I'm sure there's
that's just
digital,
like
but
dudes in
crazy makeup
and crazy.
And that's obviously, I think you talked about in the Fellowship episode that like Peter Jackson's MO before these movies came out was like a horror, like body horror creature effects kind of guy.
Yeah.
Which I've never seen any of those movies that he made before this. I'm not a big horror guy. I know you're not a big horror guy necessarily either, but it made him, I'm sure at the time people were like, Peter Jackson's going to make these movies, but it kind of made him like the perfect fit for at least that component of it.
No, absolutely. But then in the second one, Helm's Deep, you're still using a lot of extras, a lot of practical effects. You're like building out like a set and miniatures and stuff.
That's the same with the first, like in the prologue, the big. Mm-hmm. I remember watching that DVD special effects about like the making of all those big battles like a million times.
Oh yeah, like the shot in the prologue where like all the elves are like swinging their little swords up, and it's like showing like how it's like digitally mapped.
Right, I think they like had people and then they just like duplicated them basically.
Yeah, they had like 15 guys or whatever, and then they just made like 150 of them or whatever. But then obviously in this one, because of like the scale and scope of the story that you're trying to tell, you have to include like a bit more digital effects, but it's not just digital effects for the sake of including digital effects. It's still like you're still pairing it with I think we've spoken about this in all 3 episodes, but like doing like body doubles and like forced perspective for like all the stuff with the hobbits, or making Gimli like look shorter than everyone else. Like that's all still practical stuff. It's not just like, like green screening everyone together, or like having them act in like 4 different sound stages.
Yeah, everyone was in New Zealand for this, even Andy Serkis. Like,
and that I think, and he was like, I mean, he was probably doing a lot of stuff on like a green screen, like sound stage. But was he also like in acting out like actual scenes with them?
I'm not sure. I would guess he did, because this was such like I was thinking in this one, there's scenes where like the first, in Two Towers, I don't know if there are a lot of scenes where like Gollum is really like touches the hobbits, but obviously this one you have the end where he jumps on an invisible Frodo, so that's a little different. But when he gets in a fight with Sam at some point, right? And like it looks good. Like that's a fake person on top of Sam. So I don't know if in real life there was like a stunt double there or something who had the ping pong balls all over him or whatever. Like, I don't really know how. This would have been a good one maybe for other Dave to be on and give some insight as a digital
to tell us
guy.
how all that stuff works. We'll have him call in and we'll splice it in here. Yeah, probably not, but but yeah, all of the effects in this look incredible, and it is because it's like a clear intention, and it's not just effects for the sake of having effects. And like, but there's also still like really good camera work where it's like mixing in both digital and practical to like make like incredible shots, like the shot of I keep forgetting his name, but the steward of Gondor, when he lights himself on fire and jumps off.
Denethor.
Denethor. It's like a.
I hope I'm getting that right. I'm saying it with a lot of confidence.
That's all you need. That's how you get to the top. It like starts with like a like close up of like what I assume is a stunt double in like a flame suit, and then pulls back to this like grand.
He like falls in the middle of a battle, right?
Yeah, and falls into the middle of a battle, and like, but like that's awesome. That's a proper use of digital effects to give us this like amazing visual.
Yeah, I mean, not to just like keep dunking on the modern blockbuster, but the other big thing is they filmed it on location, right? Like,
yeah,
if they made this movie now, it would be all filmed on the volume, right? And like,
yeah,
sound stages, and obviously I'm sure there's like the caves and stuff. I'm sure that's a lot of sound stage and stuff, but or sets. But you know, they tried it with the Eternals and it didn't work, and now they're never going to try it again.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it, like having like matte paintings or like building like miniature sets and all of that stuff does really go a long way in terms of like how it is that we consume movies.
And most importantly, I think it's what makes it age so well, because like, you know, blockbusters can, even if you still love them years and years later, like, you know, they can, like the Pirates of the Caribbean kind of looks janky in some spots. You know, I still think those effects are pretty good, but you know, and that's obviously a much smaller scale, but or like those early Marvel movies, like those costumes are kind of bad. Like, but you know, this one, it's hard to imagine this will ever not age well. It's like, I mean, it's like some of those old like Sword and Sandals or samurai movies or whatever. Like, those are all practical effects, obviously, or miniatures and stuff, and that stuff just ages better.
They'll always look good, always feel good. Dave, how often do you rewatch Return of the King, or just like all of the Lord of the Rings movies?
This is the first time I'd like really sat down and like watched it start to finish in a while, but it's like one of those. It's like anytime it's on, it like I still have cable because I'm old. I guess. Yeah. And so, you know, when it's on like TNT or whatever over the holidays, it you know, I probably watch them all, or at least pieces of them all, at least once a year, and it's always right around this time of year because that's when they put it on TV. It feels like maybe in the summer. I guess in the summer sometimes. Kind
of summery movies too.
They're just like you have to have a lot of time, right? So it's like you're on a vacation, essentially.
Yeah. Does TNT play the extended versions or theatrical?
I don't even know if it's TNT who plays them. That's just
whatever it's on.
I feel like they must play the theatrical versions, right? Maybe sometimes they do the extended. It's like when is it AMC that don't they do like the Godfather? What do they call it? The Godfather Saga? Is that when it's like 1 and 2 edited together chronologically?
Like chronologically, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they do that every once in a while. So maybe sometimes they do the extended on one of these channels.
So you've never done the full day, 12 hours,
that's
extended
a lot.
watch with like the different meals that you're supposed to eat during each movie or whatever. You have like a Hobbit breakfast and then like an Elvish lunch.
Maybe that's what we could do for Thanksgiving next year. I think we have plans for this year, but next year we'll go to Casa.
Can I join?
And, yeah.
Okay, well,
and we'll do a 12-hour Lord of the Rings marathon while eating 11Zs and
afternoon tea and second breakfast. What's the bread that Gollum uses to frame Sam with?
Lembas bread.
Yeah, we'll have tons of lembas bread all throughout the day. Yeah, it'll be a great time. Well, sweet. If you don't have anything else, Mr. Dave Wilson, I think we might be good to wrap this up and do some recommendations for Return of the King.
Yes, you stole, honestly, 2 of the ones I had written down on the Two Towers episode, because I was going to do the video game. I was going to say Return of the King video game, which is the same thing. You know, it was like the same thing, just different fights. Although I think the Two Towers one is better, if I remember correctly.
I think the Two Tower one is a little bit better.
And King Kong. I was gonna recommend Peter Jackson's King Kong, which also had a good video game adaptation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was like a shooter, like a first-person shooter, but like kind of like a first-person shooter / adventure. You were like on the island. It was all this, obviously. You didn't
Yeah.
play it. Maybe there were like some scenes where you got to play as King Kong and like fight against the giant. What does he fight in that movie? Giant.
He fights like a T-Rex.
T-Rex
right?
or crocodile or something, right? Yeah,
Something like that.
So, but yeah, those video games are awesome. And my Instagram algorithm is enough Lord of the Rings where I get every once in a while like clips of that video game or memes about that video game.
Nice.
And yeah, those
honestly,
games rocked.
After this recording, I might see if there's like some sort of like restored version of
the Helm's Deep fight where you can like kick down the ladders while the orcs were coming up. That was great.
So much fun. This is going to be something that like maybe like 3 of our listeners will get, but I vividly remember when we were in college playing that in Tim's dorm room, and Phil kept getting really upset with me because I kept messing up kicking down the ladders in like one like particular Helm's Deep battle, and I literally was the kid who I took my ball and went home. Like it was my copy of the video game, and I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm leaving. Good times with the Two Towers game.
Yes.
All right, sweet. Let's do some recommendations so we can both see if we can find some way to recreate those lovely nostalgic years.
Yeah.
And just in case there's anyone listening who is joining us, for the first time for Return of the King, 1, God bless you. But 2, here's what we do for recommendations for every movie that we introduce into the canon. We also recommend 3 things to check out. If you like said movie, of those 3 things, at least 1 has to be another movie. The other 2 can be anything else. Video game, a book, a TV show, a season of TV, an album, a play, board game, list goes on and on. For any movies that we recommend, can't be other movies in the canon. So obviously we can't recommend The Two Towers or Fellowship of the Ring. And we'll do 3 and only 3. And that will be 3 for each of us. So 3 for Dave, 3 for myself. Dave, what is your first recommendation?
First, I've got Stephen King's The Stand, which is allegedly based on Lord of the Rings. I see it a little bit. It's definitely like Battle of Good and Evil. I don't know if you've ever read it or watched any of the adaptations.
No.
You've got Randall Flagg is like kind of the Sauron in this, just like the embodiment of pure evil. He's amassing troops out in the West in Las Vegas. It's a pandemic movie, like or pandemic book about like a plague that destroys like 98% of the population or whatever. And so it's not like a exact parallel of Lord of the Rings, but it ends up being like 2 factions trying to take over the world by getting all the evil people together, one trying to basically resist that and stop it from happening. There's like a big journey. I think if I'm remembering correctly, the good end up in like Ohio or something. Like they're in the Midwest somewhere, Nebraska. And so the big like kind of quest over the second half of the book is like they have to march through the mountains and all that kind of stuff to go to Vegas and try to try to stop the evil. I don't remember exactly what the plan is. I haven't read it in a few years, but really good book. I think the like 80s adaptation was a miniseries. It's supposed to be good. They made it a miniseries recently. I never watched it. I heard like not great things about it, but it's like kind of one of the signature, definitely like kind of one of the signature King non-horror books. And yeah, just like a true classic that is based on Lord of the Rings, but not so one for one that like you're just going to be like, oh, I get it. This is Lord of the Rings all over again.
Nice. That's cool. I didn't know that was based on Lord of the Rings, and it's just one book. It's not
just one. It's long. It's like 800 pages or something, but
okay, cool. Yeah. That dude loves to write.
Yeah. He loves to write long books.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. My first recommendation is one that I hope I'm not stealing from you.
I've got some backups.
But for the first 2 Lord of the Rings movies, I have been recommending Led Zeppelin albums, and this album doesn't necessarily have any references to Lord of the Rings specifically, but just to stick with the trend, I'm going to recommend Houses of the Holy. So I think for Fellowship, we did Led Zeppelin 4. For Two Towers, we did Led Zeppelin 2. And now for Return of the King, we're going to do Houses of the Holy.
I love it. We're both I think you stole a Led Zeppelin shirt from me at some point in college. Not stole, but had a Led Zeppelin shirt that was mine at some point.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Led Zeppelin album? You've recommended 3. I'm going to assume they're kind of your 3 favorite.
It goes back and forth. 4 is really good, but that feels like the cliche answer. Like Stairway to Heaven is one of those songs where you're like, oh, that's overplayed and overdone.
I can't hear it anymore, right? Yeah.
And then you listen to it and you're like, oh, that's why it's overplayed, because this is like really, really, really incredible. Houses of the Holy might be my favorite just because it's pretty short. It's like in and out, 7 songs, 40 minutes, no skips. But 2 is really strong. So that's a roundabout way of me saying, I don't know. Physical Graffiti is awesome, but it's too long. So the second disc has a few skippable songs. What's your favorite?
I feel like Houses of the Holy. I know I like 2 a lot. Those are probably, and then like you said, 4 that's everyone's favorite. That's the cliche. I mean, they're one of those bands that doesn't have any bad songs, basically.
Yeah.
So,
a skippable Led Zeppelin song is still way better than 80% of the songs that any other band would put out.
I think 2. I feel like 2 was probably my favorite.
2 is really good.
Skimming through track list to make sure I'm not forgetting anything.
Bring It On Home.
What's your favorite Led Zeppelin song?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think
I like When the Levee Breaks. That's my favorite.
I think I'm going to say When the Levee Breaks. That's my classic answer. It's changed over the years.
I think that would be the best relief pitcher coming out of the bullpen song.
When the Levee Breaks. Yeah, that would be awesome. I always make fun of Kashmir because it shouldn't be 8 minutes long, because they don't it's just da-na-na, da-na-na, over and over again, but it still kind of kicks ass. Achilles' Last Stand is also a really underrated track from them.
I also When the Levee Breaks is a blues cover. I like all their Dazed and Confused, obviously. It's also a classic, even though they stole it and didn't give credit or whatever.
They stole half the songs on their first 2 albums.
I don't care. They're really good.
I like that we started with Thanksgiving and ended with we're ending with Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of 2 of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah, for real.
What's your second recommendation before we go too deep into?
I'm going to go with another Peter Jackson epic, that is The Beatles Get Back.
Nice.
I'm sure everyone's watched it at this point. It's pretty old, a couple years old at this point. Each one of those is 2.5 hours or something, 3-episode Disney Plus series. Very raw, largely unedited clips of the Beatles making the last Beatles recording sessions. It's awesome, and it's perfect. Again, kind of in the same way that Lord of the Rings, you can just kind of stick it on in the background and hang out with it. You can kind of do the same thing with Get Back. Really good around this time of year, right when you're just sitting at home, killing time around the holidays or when it's cold outside. So I don't know if anyone who hasn't watched it at this point, which again, I feel like everyone's at least watched parts of it, because feels like it was a pretty big phenomenon when it came out. And obviously that was pretty early on in Disney Plus. Was it pandemic era or right after?
So.
It's again, not breaking new ground here, but
I actually haven't watched it.
As someone who's not seen a lot of Peter Jackson stuff, that's my other Peter Jackson entry point. Really, it's really good. I mean, it's slow. I don't know if you're a big Beatles guy necessarily.
Yeah, I like the Beatles.
like there's not a lot of plot to it. They just kind of like they just had a bunch of unedited footage, and he just kind of like cut it down and kind of tells a story with it, but not really. There's no talking head interviews or anything. It's just the raw footage.
That's awesome.
Together. So,
and you just like, I know like one of the big takeaways is like at one moment you just like see Paul McCartney like
come up with Get Back on the spot,
or Get
Back. Yeah, it's like he just comes in one day and is like fooling around on a riff, and
it's like, oh cool, like one of the best songs ever written, and this guy this guy literally just farts out amazing.
Yeah, it's the making of Let It Be, which is the last time they recorded together, because they've recorded Abbey Road before, even though that came out after. So,
oh really? I always thought Abbey Road came out before Let It Be. But they recorded Abbey Road after.
And then obviously it ends with the rooftop concert, which is kind of like a great like mini 1 hour like thriller in the middle, or it's at the end, I guess, so not in the middle, but in the middle of this documentary. They put it in IMAX. I never saw it when it was in IMAX. They just did that like hour long clip of the movie where, because they get up there and they're trying, like, they don't have the permitting or anything for it. So it's that's the one time there's like other there's like, they must have taken it from, I don't know, news stations or whatever, but like there's people being like, I just wish they weren't making such a ruckus. And meanwhile, they're like playing they're playing like the most famous concert in music history in the middle of London. So they only get through a couple of songs before the cops get there and bust it up.
Darn it. Dang cops. Always ruining our fun. That's sweet. That's awesome.
You were right. Abbey Road came out before, but it was recorded after, but like I don't think they were ever all together for the recording of that. It was like kind of a little bit more piecemeal.
Interesting. I think
that's much more Paul McCartney. Yeah.
Beatles album. While we're here, while we're doing favorite albums of bands,
I'm an Abbey Road guy.
Hell yeah. Although Rubber Soul is
their early stuff, like it's obviously like kind of like the pop stuff, but it's all good.
Yeah.
Rubber Soul is when they kind of start pivoting away.
It's like the pivot from like just like straight pop to like more experimental stuff, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, so that kind of gets the best of both worlds there.
Damn, we tackled Led Zeppelin and the Beatles.
Yeah, not bad.
In this episode.
And PlayStation 2 video games.
And we're also going to tackle some more music, because my next recommendation is a film that features one of the stars of this movie, who we didn't really talk about, but Cate Blanchett is in this.
She is.
And she's also in Tar, which is a movie about her playing a composer. So we'll throw we got some classic rock, but we'll also throw some classical music into the mix as well. I just don't know when I'm going to get another chance to recommend Tar,
yeah,
on this episode or on the show. So we got Cate Blanchett in Return of the King, and we got Cate Blanchett in Tar.
I feel like I got to give that another watch at some point. I watched it. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it at home, so I didn't hit. I didn't quite. I mean, it was good, but there are obviously people who like really love that movie. I feel like I need to give it another watch at some point. I know there's a lot about how like yeah, I know there's a lot about how it's like a secret ghost story is kind of going on in the movie. So I kind of like feel like I need to give it another rewatch after like having read a lot. Heard a lot about it, like as it was like kind of in the awards race, and people were like making the case that it was the best movie of that year. Also ends with her having to score a is it World of Warcraft or something at the end? No, Monster Hunter, which feels, that's a thing people love to do with Lord of the Rings movies, right? Is go see a live orchestra play Lord of the Rings.
Conducted by the one and only Lydia Tarr. That's what we need. Yeah. Apparently people thought that she was like a real person.
Yeah.
Which, wild. I can see you being a Tar head. I think I
gotta give it another watch.
You'll come around. You'll become one of us.
I like how they started with the credits. I thought that was cool. They like to do the reverse. The movie opens with like the end credits. It's pretty interesting. Okay, so I need a movie now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to go with a fantasy something here, since you stole King Kong from me last episode. I'm gonna say The Green Knight.
Oh,
The
nice.
who directed that?
Oh, I'm forgetting his name.
Isn't the last name David Lowery? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not as like epic in scale, obviously, as Lord of the Rings. It's a King Arthur story, an Arthurian adaptation. Gawain the Green Knight. But it's got the same like have to quest across all these different obstacles and biomes in different parts of a country. I don't know if a lot of people saw it. I feel like it was like people who saw it really liked it. So I think if you haven't checked that out, I'm sure it's streaming somewhere at this point. It's a couple years old, but just a good like small scale fantasy. I think epic. You know, it's a small cast, so it's not like big battles or anything, but it's just a cool like journey across. Like a
Also,
hero's journey kind of thing.
It's a holiday movie. It's great for the season.
Oh, that's
It's a
true.
Christmas
Yeah, it is
movie.
a Christmas movie, right?
Yeah. Christmas feature, double feature. You'll do Return of the King and then The Green Knight.
Yeah.
That's what everyone wants to watch.
Exactly.
Christmas morning. Yeah.
Dev Patel is awesome in that movie. So yeah, it did all
Nice.
right. Made $20 million at the box office.
I like that pick. That's
Yeah,
sweet.
I'm honestly like not a big fantasy movie guy. I don't feel like so, but that was one I really liked. So
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Yeah. If you like The Green Knight, then you'll be a Tarhead too.
yeah.
Sweet. So for my last recommendation, I am going to go with, this is famously a movie that has a extended version that is a little bit longer than the original theatric version. It's about a king returning to reclaim his rightful throne. So I'm thinking a king returning to retake his throne, extended version of a movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
You like this movie?
What? The Snyder cut?
Snyder cut.
I am very much so. I'm not a Zack Snyder stan, but a Zack Snyder apologist.
I'm with you that Zack Snyder's not bad. I kind of like his Dawn of the Dead movie.
Yeah.
I kind of like, what was the one he did a couple years where the zombies in Las Vegas? That was cool. That movie was cool.
Army of the Dead. I kind of really dig that movie.
Yeah,
not
that
really
movie's pretty cool.
Like the movie's
clever. Good. Like a heist, zombie heist movie.
Yeah.
We're in the age group where I'm sure you saw 300 in theaters and was like, that rocks.
Seeing
we're
300.
We're the exact right age for that, essentially.
Yeah, seeing it when we were like 16 and then like playing like high school sports and you're like, dude, we're so Spartans when we do sports.
Yeah. I don't get down with the Snyder cut quite as much, but I like I like the connection there of the extended version. That apparently it's much better than the original version, which I've never seen.
It is way better than the original version. So our king returned. He made the movie that he wanted to make. He is in many ways our own real life Aragorn, and we should respect him as such. He bows to no one.
Are you excited for? I know Zack Snyder's not involved anymore, but are you excited for like the new DC stuff going on? Like, are you excited about James Gunn's Superman?
I'm not a big James Gunn guy.
Yeah, I'm like cautiously optimistic. I think the guy who's playing Superman's an Eagles fan, so gotta support him.
Okay,
Did you watch your James Gunn? I forgot he made the Rebel Moon. I was trying to remember what he was up to now.
Oh,
did you watch
that?
Was
that James Gunn or was that?
Sorry, not James Gunn. Zack Snyder.
I watched like 10 minutes of the first one and it was terrible.
Okay, I never
so
checked
bad.
it out. So if you didn't like it, I don't have to check it out.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Like Zack Snyder is like can be a pretty bad director, but I do think that there are moments where he's respectable.
He's got a style, right? I never saw his Watchmen movie, but I know like there are people who are kind of defenders of that.
Yeah, I'm not a defender of Watchmen.
Sucker Punch, people like Sucker Punch.
People do like Sucker Punch, and 300 is like it's like it's fine.
His Suicide Squad is quite bad, right?
As a film bro movie. I think James Gunn.
James Gunn's Suicide Squad is not bad, I don't think.
Okay, I didn't care for it that much. It's like whatever. Which is I'm sure that there are people who are listening right now and they're like, how is this guy defending Zack Snyder and hating on James Gunn?
Hates all of his movies.
Yeah.
But out of the gate, Dawn of the Dead 300, first off the bat for Zack Snyder, not bad.
No.
Like, people make fun of 300 now, but that was, like, people like that movie. It made a shitload of money. I feel like if I watched
300 now, cool. I would still kind of get down with it. Yeah,
it's got a style.
Yeah.
I think his Dawn of the Dead is real. I mean, I haven't seen it in forever, but I remember really liking it.
I remember digging that as well.
The whole like ball shoot, like yeah. I've actually never seen the original, so maybe it's just like a real like knockoff of that. Obviously, it's a remake, but
who knows?
Pretty clever, I think, about like the the
consumer culture.
Yeah,
turn us into zombies.
Exactly.
We've really hit it all.
We have. We went from Thanksgiving to Zack Snyder.
Yeah, with some Beatles and Zeppelin along the way, and also some Return of the King. Which, yeah, kind of sad that we have now done all of the Lord of the Rings movies, but it has been.
I think this is the way to do it. I remember you talking about should you have split it up over years. I think this is the way to do it.
Let's just bang them all out.
Yeah.
You know, same as Peter Jackson. If he can film all of them at the same time, we can record all of the Lord of the Rings episodes at the same time, release them not year after year after year, but week after week after week. And now folks can binge them during the holiday season, which, listener, I hope you're doing that now. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. Dave, I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. Always a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, man. So what do you have a Christmas episode coming at some point?
So this is technically the end of season
finale,
4.
right? But
this is our season finale, but we will be doing just a one-off special Christmas episode. We're going to be talking Elf.
How many Christmas movies are in the canon? Like, can you make this a yearly thing?
I think it's Elf and It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, I'd like to reserve a spot on that one.
And that's going to be, everyone's going to be gunning for a spot there. And depending on who you ask, Die Hard. Home Alone is not.
Interesting. I feel like that's got a case, but
yeah,
I can also see the argument for not. Die Hard would be a good Christmas. I think it is we don't. This is a stupid debate. We're not going to talk about it, but if you're ever going to do it, you can put it at Christmas. And I don't think
do it at Christmas time. Why not? Yeah. But yeah, this is a wrap on season 4. We already spoiled it, but we will be having a Christmas special episode at some point in December to hold all of you over, Screenagers, until we return with a few. We'll be doing some bonus episodes in January, and we'll be kicking off season 5 proper at some point in 2025, probably February. Been another great season. Dave, before we go, is there anything that you want to plug? Anything that you're working on that folks can or should check out, or you're just here for the vibes?
Mostly just here for the vibes. I made a Blue Sky, so I don't even. David Wilson, I think, is my name there. I didn't have to do numbers because I'm an early enough adopter on Blue Sky.
Nice.
I'm still mostly on Twitter though.
Yeah.
At DB Wilson 2. Letterboxd, probably DB Wilson 2 there also. I don't remember.
Sweet. Yeah. I feel like I'm trying to transition over to Blue Sky more. It seems less toxic and less likely to like open up the app and see a video of someone dying, which is like a cool thing, you know?
Yeah, it's not bad. It's good so
sweet.
far, but it's still early, you know?
Still early.
I, the nice thing about it is I can really feel like I can like reset my algorithm, you know?
Yeah.
We get stuck in our algorithm so easily. Like where I've had a Twitter since I was 14 years old or something, right? Like,
yeah,
since high school. Like I just need a reset at some point.
Yeah, it's a good reset. We'll be taking a reset on the Canon until that Elf episode, and then until 2025. So I hope everyone has a great end of year, holiday season, all of that good stuff. Enjoy time with your family. Enjoy watching all of the movies, all of the best movies. And we will see everyone in 2025 for more essential movies. We love you all. We hope you have a great time, and we'll see you on the other side in the wasteland. Bye, everyone.